The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. Instead of phasing out traditional jeepneys, the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board says they will allow the rehabilitation of old units. This comes after transport groups mounted a strike against the government's planned PUV modernization. The LTFRB says drivers and operators have the option to keep their traditional jeepneys so long as they are upgraded to meet the Philippine national standard.
Dapat to nasa gilid na po yung entrance po nito for safety. Ito po yung hindi katulad po ng ating mga traditional jeep na nasa rear. Yung makina po nito must be a Euro 4 engine or better emission na type of engine. Kasi ang ina-address din natin dito, it should be environment friendly yung makina po nito.
As the government pushes through with modernizing PUVs, the LTFRB explains that the program should help with drivers' income. This as the program aims to replace the existing boundary system by providing transport workers with stable pay and more benefits.
Yung pinag-usapan natin na boundary system, mawawala ho yun. Magkakaroon ho sila ng siguradong kikitain sa isang araw dahil magiging salary-based na po ang kanila hong kikitain aside from may mga benefits sila.
PUVs are back on the road today as transport groups Manibela and Piston announced the end of their strike. This announcement came following a meeting yesterday afternoon between the leaders of transport groups and the Office of the Executive Secretary in Malacanang. The palace says that during the meeting, the groups were able to air their grievances over the implementation of the PUV modernization program. Malacanang adds that the President has ordered the Transportation Department and the LTFRB to use the new December 31 deadline for consolidation to review provisions of the Omnibus Franchising Guidelines. The President says this review must take into account all aspects of the program's implementation as well as the needs of drivers and operators. On Facebook, Manibela declared that there will no longer be a phase-out of PUVs. The group adds that more details on their initial dialogue with the palace will be announced later today at 10 a.m.
Nais naming humingi ng paumanhin sa ating mga mananakay sa naisagawang transport strike ng aming grupo upang mabigyan ng boses ang aming mga hinahing. Nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyong pangunawa. Sa aming mga kasamahan, huwag po kayong mabahala. Sa ating pagunlad at pagbabago, sisiguraduhin nating mananatili ang tinaguriang hari ng kalsada.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. The government's outstanding debt once again climbed in the month of January. According to data from the Treasury Bureau, the national government debt rose 2% to nearly 13.7 trillion pesos as of the end of January. This comes after the government trimmed its balance to 13.4 trillion as of the end of 2022. Nearly 69% of the debt stock came from domestic sources, while the rest was sourced externally. The Bureau says the net availment of foreign loans and impact of third currency adjustments contributed to the rise in the country's external obligations. However, peso depreciation reduced the peso value of foreign currency denominated debt by around 94 billion pesos. The Tourism Department has further eased COVID-19 restrictions in tourist spots. The agency said face masks and vaccination cards are no longer required in tourism establishments. This comes as support to the government's efforts for the recovery of the economy from the pandemic. The Health Department clarified, though, that the DOT announcement was just a reiteration.
Nire-reiterate lang siguro ng Department of Tourism para mas maka-attract tayo ng mga tourists sa ating area. So, we don't need really, hindi na minamandato, people or us would be choosing kung tayo sa tingin natin kailangan magmask, magmamask tayo. Kung sa tingin natin hindi naman kailangan, pwede tayong hindi magmask.
Congressman Arnolfo Teves Jr. is now facing murder charges in relation to killings in Negros Oriental back in 2019. The PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group and family members of the supposed victims are named as complainants. Their lawyer and witnesses from the assassination team have identified Teves as the mastermind in 3 separate killings. One of the victims was former provincial board member Miguel Lopez Lungog, who was killed in front of a hospital in Dumaguete.
They were summoned by, allegedly they were summoned by Congressman Teves, gave them the instructions to assassinate these victims, at marami pa silang detalye na sinabi. Yung sinasabi ng mga ito ay dahil kalaban sa politika. Especially si dating board member Miguel Dungog.
The filing came days after the assassination of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo, one of Teves's political rivals. The complainants say they have long been building up the case against Teves, and the filing merely coincided with the death of Degamo. Congressman Teves has since denied any involvement in the killing of the governor, saying his clan would not benefit from Degamo's death. 4 suspects in the killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo have been transferred from the province to the NBI and Camp Crame on Tuesday. 2 of them are under the protective custody of the NBI, while the other 2 were brought to Camp Crame. All 4 suspects, who are former members of the Philippine Army, have vowed to cooperate in the investigation so they can be placed under the Witness Protection Program. The PNP says the suspects have provided them information to capture the other gunmen involved. Senators, meanwhile, visited Degamo's wake while they handed out the resolution to the late governor's wife, recognizing Degamo and condemning the spate of killings of local officials. The Senate will conduct a separate investigation into the official's death.
Dapat yan mabuwag, mahuli, ma-neutralize, kunin yung mga baril nila, and we'll send a strong statement that this administration will not tolerate gun-for-hire syndicates, illegal firearms, or private armies.
And that's it for this hour. I'm Diego Castro. Join us again at 11:15 a.m. We are One News. All sides, all the time.